Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Makiza Latifa. Let's get started with China Currents with Chris, your weekly news report of what's trending in China. And one of our most trending stories for this week will be the 14th National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference and the 14th National People's Congress.
China Currents is a weekly news talk show from China to the world. We cover viral news about China every week and also give you the newest updates on China's cutting-edge technologies. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to China Currents. I'm Chris. The top news in China in the past week is undoubtedly the annual political sessions. That is the 14th National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference and the 14th National People's Congress. Known as a platform for concentrating Chinese policy signals, the annual two sessions serve as a crucial window for the world to observe China. In anticipation of these significant events, global media outlets and overseas experts have been actively looking forward to the two sessions, recognizing them as a source of valuable insight into China's development. More than 3,000 domestic and international journalists have registered to cover the two sessions, with over 2,000 from within China and more than 1,000 from Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and other countries. On March 5th, Chinese Premier Li Qiang announced a 1 trillion RMB worth of special ultra-long government bonds. The issue of these ultra-long bonds will continue for the next several consecutive years, specifically allocated for national strategic initiatives and the development of key areas concerning national security. Issuance of the year 2024 was included in the annual government work report to the National People's Congress delivered by the Premier. It's the fourth time that China issued a special national debt since the first release in 1998. The most recent issue of special bonds was in 2020, with 1 trillion RMB worth specifically allocated for nationwide COVID-19 prevention and control. Special is defined as debts allocated for specific purposes or programs, usually on a national strategic level, and is excluded from the deficit. With consideration of the recent international situation, policymakers in China have stressed multiple times on prioritizing national security, aligning with the announcement of these issuance. Prepared to undergo the major tests of high winds and waves and even perilous stormy seas, said President Xi during 20th CPC National Congress in 2022. An ultra-long refers to the bond issuance periods exceeding 10 years. In 1998, China issued a series of long bonds as stimulus for infrastructure in response to the 1997 Asian financial crisis. Besides the special debt, the government work report also released a fiscal plan for the year, including a 3% deficit rate equal to that of 2023, and a special bond of 3.9 trillion RMB for local government debts. The report emphasized the necessity of optimizing expenditure structure, which will strengthen financial support for national strategic programs and basic livelihoods. In exchange, the annual fiscal plan will restrict general expenditure that occupies the majority of local government debts. On March 5th, China's State Council releases the GDP growth target for 2024 during a press briefing at the two sessions, which aims to achieve a growth rate of around 5%. When asked about the rationale behind setting the target at this level and the measures that will be taken to ensure its attainment, Huang Shouhong, the head of the drafting team for the government work report, explained that the target was determined based on comprehensive considerations of various factors, including both domestic and international situations, as well as current needs and long-term objectives. He emphasized that the target is aimed at addressing the pressing issue of expanding employment, increasing household income, and mitigating risks, all of which require a certain level of economic growth. Huang also noted that the effects of major policy measures implemented in the second half of the previous year are expected to continue to manifest in 2024. Beijing remains optimistic about achieving the target and is committed to implementing necessary measures to sustain economic growth and ensure social development. Next up, let's take a look at one of the top trending proposals on the Chinese internet. Kenneth Fok Kai Kong, a Hong Kong representative of the National People's Congress, proposed an increase in paid days off in Chinese labor system on March 5th. With heavy workloads and insufficient guarantee for labor regulations, a portion of laborers in China have no vacations, cannot take a vacation, or dare not take a vacation, Fogg summarized. He proposed amendments to the current paid days off system, recommending additional off days added each subsequent year to employees, up to a maximum of 10 days from the 5 days initially. Fogg also stressed the priority of mandatory implementation of such policies according to law, including penalizing enterprises violating related regulations and laws. In China, labor regulations and laws only set a minimum of 5 days off currently, plus the regular 2-day weekend off is not strictly implemented in many enterprises in China. With improvements in living standards aligning with economic growth, the vacation system has become insufficient for employees, specifically for the younger generations. The tourism industry in China has also been affected by the vacation system. Visitors concentrated on the 7-day Labor Day vacations and National Day vacations, Fogg pointed out in his proposal. To stimulate the domestic economy, it's necessary to expand tourism opportunities by increasing the number of paid days off, thus releasing the consumption potential of the masses. Next up, space. The Shenzhou 17 crew aboard China's orbiting space station successfully completed their second extravehicular mission on Saturday, as announced by the China Manned Space Agency. Taikonauts Tang Hongbo, Tang Shengjie, and Jiang Xinlin executed their assigned tasks with precision, marking a significant milestone in China's space exploration endeavors. The extravehicular activities, lasting approximately 8 hours, involved a meticulously planned spacewalk by Tang Hongbo and Jiang Xinlin. The duo, supported by the space station robotic arms and coordinated efforts with scientists on Earth, safely returned to the Wentian Lab module after accomplishing their objective at 1:32 p.m. China launched the Shenzhou 17 manned spaceship on October 26, 2023, and the crew conducted a repair test during the first extravehicular mission on December 21st of the same year. During their second spacewalk, the Taikonauts focused on the maintenance of the Tianhe core module's solar wings, addressing the potential impact of small space particles. The China Manned Space Agency reported that following thorough evaluation and analysis, the solar wing's power generation function is operating normally. The mission marked the first time that Taikonauts successfully conducted in-orbit maintenance of the extravehicular facilities, and additionally, the Shenzhou 17 crew conducted inspections on the status of the space station's modules, ensuring their continued functionality. Next up, as the Biden administration imposes additional tariffs on autos from China, U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said in an interview that cars these days are like iPhones on wheels. Chinese electric vehicles cause national security risks. Imagine a world with 3 million Chinese vehicles on the roads of America, and Beijing could turn them off at the same time, she said. In response to this imagery by the U.S. Commerce Secretary, Chinese netizens generally believe that this accusation is essentially protectionist, for the very reason that the rapid development of China's electric vehicle industry threatens the interest of some U.S. capital. National security is nothing more than an excuse, and such smear campaigns are a common U.S. tactic. iPhones are American products. Were you suggesting that iPhones, Tesla, and even Boeing have been sending secret data back to the US? Next up, in recent days, a property transaction went viral on Chinese social media with hashtags seaside property, near Shenzhen, and ultra-low price trending together on Weibo. A unit of semi-detached house of about 154 square meters was sold for a mere 250,000 RMB. The decline in seaside property prices can be attributed to various factors. Firstly, the oversupply of properties has led to intense competition among sellers, forcing them to lower prices to attract buyers. Additionally, changes in government regulations and policies have impacted the real estate market, leading to a slowdown in demand. Furthermore, the evolving preferences of buyers have shifted towards other investment options or different locations, reducing the demand for seaside properties. As a result of these factors, there is now an abundance of low-priced second-hand seaside properties flooding the market, which has diminished their previous appeal. Last but not least, in the latest salvo against TikTok, A bipartisan group of US lawmakers introduced a bill on Tuesday requiring ByteDance, the Chinese owner of the hugely popular app, to divest control within 165 days or face an effective ban through removal from the US app stores. This legislation will trample the First Amendment rights of 170 million Americans and deprive 5 million small businesses of a platform they rely on to grow and create jobs, a TikTok spokesperson responded. The American Civil Liberties Union has also criticized the bill as unconstitutional. "We are deeply disappointed that our leaders are once again attempting to trade our First Amendment rights for cheap political points during an election year," said Gina Leventhov, an ACLU Senior Policy Counsel. The bill, led by Republican Mike Gallagher and Democrat Raja Krishnamurti, aims to address the so-called national security risks over TikTok's ties to China. The House Energy and Commerce Committee is set to vote on a bipartisan proposal on Thursday. The confrontation escalates after months of US officials ratcheting up pressure over purported securities threats. In January, TikTok CEO Shou Zi Chew, a Singaporean, faced aggressive questioning about his citizenship during a child safety hearing. Weeks ago, he endured grilling from over 50 lawmakers at another hearing focused squarely on TikTok. With 170 million American users, TikTok has achieved a massive scale, making an outright ban far more complicated. This bill would only block the app from being distributed through official app stores, not prohibit existing users. As the 2024 election nears and TikTok's US influence grows, political and corporate interests in both parties appear motivated to bring the platform under domestic control. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for watching this episode of China Currents. If you have any thoughts and comments about our show, please reach us at the email address below. And Chris, looking forward to hearing from you, and see you next time.
And that's all for China Currents. Let's continue the show with Threshold with Lisa, which will focus on whether or not the artificial intelligence gap between China and the United States is widening.
OpenAI's Sora has gained a lot of attention around the world because it can create extremely realistic videos that are longer than ever before. Some people say that the gap in AI technology between the United States and China is getting bigger, but they don't realize that there is a quiet but powerful revolution happening in China's AI industry. Hi, I'm Lisa, and this is Threshold in China, where we are going to explore the cutting edge of Chinese innovation in AI. ChatGPT relies on approximately 30,000 powerful GPU chips to perform its computations. The demand for computation power by Sora is even more astonishing. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is aggressively pushing a chip plan worth $5 to $7 trillion to increase the availability of self-developed chips. But investing that much money is unrealistic for most countries. To put it into perspective, it's almost 2 years of the UK's GDP. Fortunately, pouring money into an arms race for computing power is not the only way to advance AI. Instead of solely focusing on developing general large models that rely on computing power and hardware, researchers are also exploring the creation of specialized large models for specific fields. These models require specific training data, like those used for industrial robots, intelligent driving, and weather forecasting. They require less funding compared to general large models and can be directly applied in practical industries. Chinese AI models have been applied in many other highly specialized areas. The Pangu model is the world's first AI model that is more accurate than the traditional forecasting methods. It can complete global weather forecasts for the next 1 hour to 7 days in seconds, with an accuracy that exceeds traditional numerical analysis method while increasing the forecasting speed by 10,000 times. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of what Pangu is capable of. Pangu is a collective name of 5 large foundational models trained by Huawei. The Chinese language NLP model is designed specifically for the Chinese language and is the industry's first pre-training model with over 100 billion parameters. It is widely regarded for its human-like understanding of Chinese. The Visual CV model, on the other hand, is the largest computer vision model in the industry, with over 3 billion parameters. It has features like on-demand model extractions and a balanced approach to understanding and generating information, making it adaptable for various AI applications. Using specific algorithms, the CV model can better understand images based on their features and improve its ability to learn from small amounts of data. It has become a top model in the industry.
Pangu's capabilities go beyond language and vision models. It also includes a multimodal model, a scientific computing model, and a prediction model.
On top of these 5 foundation models, Huawei has already launched industry-specific models like Pangu Financial, Pangu Mining, Pangu Pharmaceutical Molecular, Pangu Power, Pangu Manufacturing Quality Inspection, and Pangu Weather. In February, UBTech, a humanoid robot producer based in Shenzhen, went public and deployed its latest model, Walker S, in an electrical vehicle plant. The robot's role include adaptive walking to initiate and stop the production line, robust mileage calculation and walking planning, autonomous operation perception, system data communication, and task scheduling. UBTech has formed partnership with prominent EV companies. Last year, it collaborated with Miracle Automation Engineering, a leading player in EV manufacturing and supply chain based in Jiangsu, to establish a joint venture. This collaboration focuses on the research, development, manufacturing, and comprehensive solution of humanoid robots tailored for the automotive sector. As a result, UBTech stands as the only humanoid robot company actively involved in the automotive industry, despite not manufacturing cars themselves. The combination of AI and robotics will ultimately reshape the manufacturing industry. Researchers from Tsinghua University, along with colleagues from Samsung Research China, have made significant progress in training a robot to understand and carry out natural language commands. This new approach, called Robot GPT, aims to enhance the stability and safety of robot-assisted tasks, making them more applicable to everyday life. The researchers are investigating the integration of large language models like ChatGPT into robotic systems to enable robots to understand and respond to instructions given in natural language. While ChatGPT can generate code to carry out tasks, there is a risk of unpredictability and inconsistency in its outputs. To address this challenge, the researchers developed a robust learning model within the Robot GPT framework. This system translates the environment and task into natural language prompts, allowing ChatGPT to generate specific action commands. However, instead of directly executing this code, Robot GPT learns the planning strategies generated by ChatGPT. This approach significantly improves the system's ability to increase the success rate of tasks. While ChatGPT is used in this research, the framework can be applied to other similar language models, particularly those trained by Chinese researchers with comparable coding capabilities. On another front, Chinese researchers are working on reducing the training time for large language models. A team from Peking University and ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, currently, has introduced Megascale, a production system designed to train LLMs on a massive scale using over 10,000 GPUs. With Megascale, they were able to train a model the size of GPT-3, 175 billion parameters, in just 1.75 days, whereas it took OpenAI nearly a year to accomplish the same tasks. With all that said, let's reconsider the question: has the AI gap between China and the US widened with the introduction of Sora? It's crucial to recognize that video generation is just one aspect of AI progress. While Chinese models may not currently produce videos of the same quality as Sora, they excel in various other fields. Chinese industry-specific large models have made significant advancement in mining, meteorology, medicine, and electric power. Being the world's most powerful manufacturing nations in history is the unique advantage of China's development in artificial intelligence. And this is today's Threshold.
And that's all for Threshold with Lisa. Next on the show is the Thinkers Forum. And today, it features a professor of the Graduate School of Economics, UNAM, Dr. Enrique Dussel-Peters.
Look, in 2024, we have been working in detail in the last more than 2 decades in the 21st century on this socioeconomic relationship between Latin America and the Caribbean with China. I would say that in very general terms, the relationship has been very positive, very dynamic, and very challenging for both parts, for the region, Latin America and the Caribbean, for China, and for each of the Latin American countries. No? The Chinese presence in Latin America has increased at all fields, no? From military to nuclear stations, to trade, to cooperation in art, in academics, in education, in sports, and whatever you can imagine. Our experience has been that today we have to distinguish between specific fields of cooperation and linkages between Latin America and the Caribbean and China. One is trade. So China, in the last 20 plus years, has become the second largest trading partner of the region of Latin America, only after the United States. And I remind you, early in the 21st century, the share of China was less of 1% of Latin America's trade. Today, it is between 10 and 12% and still growing very quickly. And in many countries, China is already the first trading partner. In other countries, such as in Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, and in other countries, mainly in Central America, but also in Mexico, China has become the second largest trading partner. So lots of detailed discussions, analysis that we have been supporting in each of the countries, from Argentina to Mexico, again, together with counterparts in China, on regional effects of trade, on the effects of trade with China in terms of employment, in terms of ecological impacts, in specific global value chains from soya beans to electronics to auto parts, etc. The second field, at least as important, is financing. China has become a very important source of financing for Latin America. In the last decade, in several years, China has been more important than the Inter-American Development Bank and the World Bank together. It depends on the specific year. Sometimes Chinese development banks have been with lower loans than these institutions. No? A third topic is overseas foreign direct investment. China has become a major investor in the region. In our network, we publish since 2017 every year a monitor on China's OFDI, overseas foreign direct investment, with statistics using MOFCOM statistics, but also Latin American statistics. A brief monitor, 10 pages regarding the main annual issues of Chinese OFDI by sector, by country, by property, etc. And finally, a fourth topic, that socioeconomic topic that we believe that is fundamental in the socioeconomic relationship are infrastructure projects. China has become a major player in Latin America. Again, there are many other players, US American, other foreign players in addition to Latin American firms. But we have witnessed almost 300 realized infrastructure projects in the 21st century, most of them huge and very large hydroelectric power plants, but recently also smaller projects regarding public transportation, the installation of green energy parks in solar energy, etc., etc. Let's put it politely, where both Chinese and Latin Americans have not paid sufficiently attention to the topic, which is the employment generated by infrastructure in many cases is important, the indirect, the direct employment, the amount of the projects can be very substantial. But the new stage of the increasingly mature relationship between Latin America and China and the more complex relationship today between both parts is how Chinese infrastructure projects are changing everyday life in Latin America. You have to imagine, for example, one of the almost 300 projects by Chinese firms in Latin America is the renovation of a metro line, of a subway line in Mexico City, Line 1. No? This is being pursued by CRRC, a Chinese firm. And so this renovation, this new line, it was just inaugurated last month, no? This line is being used by hundreds of millions of people every year, Mexicans. And so the subway lines and the wagons will say, made in China. If the subway system works 24 hours, 7 days a week, people will say, you know what? I don't know about, and very humbly and very politely, but I don't know about the discussions between Mr. Biden and Mr. Xi Jinping. I know that China works. It works every day, 365 days a year. By the way, if it works on Mondays and it doesn't work on Tuesdays and on Saturdays you have problems, people will say, you know what? Made in China does not work. No, I have high expectations. I have been dozens of times in Shanghai, in Beijing, but also in Chongqing and many other cities. I have the highest expectation that this subway system and infrastructure in general, that they will work like in China, and they work 24 hours, 7 days a week. So again, hydroelectric power plants, public transportations, Wi-Fi networks, metro, airports, ports, etc., are changing, increasing the quality of life, everyday life in Latin America and the Caribbean. I think this is a people-to-people relationship, which is very substantial. Each of these four fields required specificities, a detailed analysis, and I always argue against green juices. No, in Latin America and in many parts of the world, green juices are very fashionable. They are very healthy. You put orange juice and you put lots of things. It's a liquid salad, but at the end you don't really know what you are drinking. No, so we argue very much against green juices in the Latin America-China relationship. I don't have anything against a holistic perspective of the relationship, but in general, very positive, and expectations are that this relationship should continue growing, probably not with the same dynamism than in the last decade, but it will continue to grow very strongly in each of these fields and with specific challenges in each of these fields. No? Trade is completely different than investment, completely different than financing, completely different than infrastructure. You have domestic issues in China, in Latin America, policy issues, instruments, etc., etc. Today, the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, 10 years ago, 11 years now, in 2013, it started as the One Belt and One Road Initiative. We tried to link BRI with the concept of a process of globalization with Chinese characteristics. If you visit China every year, every 6 months, you will find hundreds of new infrastructure projects, from airports to ports to highways to metros to hospitals to schools to whatever. And so BRI is highly linked with infrastructure projects, interconnectivity, no? And the main institution from an international perspective to coordinate infrastructure projects, Chinese infrastructure projects globally, is the Belt and Road Initiative. So the BRI is something like an umbrella institution that coordinates hundreds of Silk Road. You have the new maritime Silk Road, the digital Silk Road, the cultural Silk Road, the educational Silk Road, the trade, lots of different initiatives. And under BRI, you have also institutions such as the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, etc., etc. So BRI attempts to coordinate, since 2013, this process of globalization with Chinese characteristics, and links concretely to Latin America, for example, not only, but mainly through infrastructure projects all over Latin America. No? This is based on China's experience. The old rich guy in town, which is the United States, has been very suspicious about the Belt and Road Initiative. No? So if you read the State Department, if you read the Biden administration, etc., they have been very critical of the BRI and highlighting lots of traps, debt trap, technology trap, lots of traps. But by the way, the United States have been trying to copy the BRI and trying to do something similar like China 10 years later. The United States has found out that BRI has been very successful. It has been very successful in linking South-South cooperation between China and the global South, particularly with Africa, which was supposed to be the lost and the forgotten continent. No? So for the West, Africa was a forgotten continent. It was not possible to do business, to do investments, to do trade, to do financing, infrastructure, etc. But China and the Belt and Road Initiative proved them wrong. China has been extremely active and productive and efficient in developing new relationships with Africa as a continent and with most of the African countries, but also in Latin America, also in Asia, and so with very specific projects, mainly in infrastructure. No? So the United States has suddenly found out that they are well behind the relationship regarding the global South if you compare it with China. And so in the last years, they have been trying to develop in old and some new institutions, such as the USAID, among others, specifically regarding financing for infrastructure, for example, in Latin America, a topic that was practically forgotten for decades. But since China is doing this successfully in the 21st century, they have found out that they have to do something similar because there is a large demand for such infrastructure projects in Latin America. No? Again, several decades late, but still, no? I hope that Latin America and other countries can benefit from this new triangular relationship, and hoping that the confrontation between China and the United States gets not too tense, even in the military field. So tensions and contradictions, confrontations are not necessarily negative up to a specific point. No? If one of the members of this new relationship requires or requests that other members do not participate with China, then it gets very difficult, particularly if China is already in Mexico, in Brazil, in Latin America. China is already the #1 trading partner, the second investor, hundreds of infrastructure projects, and suddenly requesting. Look, I would tell you that if the relation continues as it has happened in the last 5 to 10 years, expectations are that with some bumps, with some uncertainties, you can never be sure, hopefully not. But beyond that, everything shows that the region of Latin America and each of the countries will increase the relationship with China, even in the case of those countries that do not have a diplomatic relationship with China. I remind you, Central America and the Caribbean have 6 or 7 countries that still have diplomatic ties with Taiwan, no? One of the biggest are Paraguay and Guatemala. But again, we have to be very aware that the old rich guy in town, no, I would say China is the new rich guy in town, and the United States is the old rich guy in town. So the old rich guy in town, you might dislike him, you might hate him, you might whatever, but he's still very powerful, and particularly in Latin America. So you have to be aware of the sudden reactions of the old rich guy in town, no, because that will be important in Latin America. Again, I believe that most countries in Latin America are not afraid of the confrontation between the United States and China, but we have to be very aware because in many fields it's getting very ugly. No, again, I work in the academic field, and for example, it's very ugly that beautiful Confucius Institutes. We have one Confucius Institute at our university, and I believe it's a wonderful institution where they teach geography, history, culture, Chinese, of course, etc. And they were in the United States, they were practically required to cancel all Confucius Institutes in many universities. No, I was a visiting professor at the University of Pittsburgh in 2020, and they, in 2020, just before the COVID-19 pandemic, and they closed it, no, as a requirement from the State Department, the Department of Defense, and other departments in the United States. So we have to be very clear that the confrontation today between the US and China will not allow us. I have been recently, last year, several times in China. It is a little bit surprising for me. I think many people in China believe or still hope that China and the United States can return to a pacific and old good relationship with the United States. That will not be possible. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party, they disagree on everything. But they agree, both parties, very strongly that they have to be very tough, very challenging, very strict against China. No? So we will not get back to the relationship of China with the United States as it used to be 10 or 15 years ago. Very unfortunately.
And that's all for the show today. Grateful for your time as always. Please send in your thoughts, feedback, and suggestions for the coming episodes of the show. My name is Makiza Latifa, and I will see you same time next week.